Our guest in studio today needs no introduction. Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng has become a household name as someone who's willing to stand for his principles and speak truth to power. Chief Justice, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We're an interesting country as South Africa with a long legacy of inequality and exploitation, exclusion. Yet today we sit here in Sandton, a thriving hub of business and opportunity. Are we in a social justice crisis in this country?
I wouldn't say we're in a crisis. I think we are challenged by the contrast between what you see in Sandton and what you see in Khayelitsha and in the rural areas, to speed up the process of ensuring that all South Africans can have a taste of the unbelievable and almost immeasurable natural and mineral resources that our country has been endowed with. We need to do more. We need to look for ways that we haven't discovered yet for accelerating the realization of that objective, the objective of making sure that the quality of life of all South Africans is improved and the potential of all is released.
We heard you speak today at the Chikalulu Serious Social Investing Conference here at GIBS, and you made a point around leadership and taking brutal self-reflection. What do you say the role of business leaders in particular, but also public sector leaders and civil society leaders are? What's the role they have to play in bringing about this change and addressing these issues?
I think business leaders in particular have a very crucial role to play. I get disturbed when I come across incidents of fronting. The black economic empowerment system meant to benefit the previously disadvantaged, including women, whether white or black, and people with disability, being unfairly taken advantage of by some of our fellow white compatriots, grabbing a few names here and there from the previously disadvantaged group to pretend that their company is as transformed as it ought to be to benefit from the tenders that government makes available or grants from time to time, when in fact those people are nothing but employees, some of them being cleaners. I think the way to assume this greater responsibility by the private sector, by the corporate world, is to identify what exactly our Constitution requires of each and every one of us, including those in the business sector, to do in order to give practical expression to our aspirations as set out in the preamble to our Constitution. There is so much mobilization that must be done by civic society to create an awareness among the rural poor, the poor in the townships, who really don't know their rights, who don't know what to do, to help quicken the process of realizing their rights, to help change their own situation. But also I think we need to criticize government, but as we do, also advise on what positive steps could be taken to do things differently, so that in areas where projects run by government have proved to be ineffective, some improvement could be brought about.
As a leader, a fellow leader in the country, among many other good leaders in the public sector, private sector, we have these leaders. Yet we seem to be going into a time of political turbulence. There's economic turbulence, the threat of sovereign ratings agency downgrades, that sends a signal of uncertainty and instability through the country. How do you as a leader keep hope alive, build the confidence in the future that we need if we're going to be successful in these areas?
I think what we need to remind all of our people is that it is not a first time that a situation of this nature occurs in the world. Let's cast our minds back to when Abraham Lincoln was the President of America, just when you thought the Union was coming together. There were disruptions. war was declared, and that explains why he died as tragically as he did. You can think of Roosevelt, for instance, at the time when he took over. Think of America at the time when President Obama took over. It was almost a hopeless situation. But ethical leaders are confident leaders, leaders who have a vision and look for the many positives that we tend to gloss over and focus primarily on the negatives. What we need to do is say, well, thank God that we are not at junk status yet. What is it that we need to say to business as government? What is it that we need to say to government as business? What is it that we need to do and say to facilitate self-correction where it is required, so that we give hope not only to the people of South Africa, but also give reason to the rating agencies to realize that we're determined to bring about the change and the difference that is required to help us escape being further downgraded. There is so much that is available to South Africa to use as a foundation for turning this situation around. As I said, I don't even think it's only America that offers an example. I have reason to believe that if Germany could emerge from the Hitler era and become the economic giant that it is, then no country should have any reason to be hopeless. But more importantly, we are a unique people. When the negotiations that culminated in South Africa becoming a constitutional democracy began, when the building that housed the CODESA negotiations was broken through by some of our compatriots, it looked like it was all over. And there were sharp differences at the time between the ruling party and the liberation movements at the time. Remember at the time when there was a difference between President de Klerk and President Mandela? Worse still, when Chris Hani was gunned down, an average South African ought to have said, it's over. We will never be a constitutional democracy. People are going to go back to fight. It did not happen because we are a resilient people. We are a people who know how to fight for what is good, for what is right when we have to. And this is an opportunity for all South Africans, for all leaders, to just cast their minds back to what we have done and what we can still do going forward.
If we look at where you are positioned in the arm of government responsible to, or of the state, responsible to ensure the rule of law and the upholding of the rule of law, looking at where we are as a country 20 years, 21 years into democracy, some say we're an infant democracy. We should be having these teething problems. My question is, firstly, where do you think we're at? And more importantly, what are the critical things that we should be spending our energies on? Someone asked you, what is the national agenda? What should that be for us?
We should be spending our energies on finding that common purpose around which we must all rally. If our economy is further downgraded, it is not going to hit hard at government only. It's going to hit hard and very hard at the private sector and the poor in this country. So it is in our interest as a collective, as a nation, to spend less energy on criticism, but more energy on doing and saying things that would project us better to the outer world without misrepresenting anything. I think we need to look for areas in our quiet discussions behind closed doors of cost cutting, the business sector, government. We need to reflect very seriously on aspects of our governance and aspects of our economies that are weakening our position right now, and together find a way of marching forward to make South Africa a better country that it is capable of being.
Chief Justice, thank you for the contribution that you make to the country, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.